it's worth doing it just because of the impact and the large numbers of persons that can participate to learn from your experiences. From the World Bank perspective, the Africa Centers of Excellence program actually is a huge investment in higher education in the sub-region. It is one of our flagship programs. We've been working with Prof. Gordon and team in the University of Ghana since the first project, which was launched in 2014, in which the program introduced innovative elements around competitive higher education, where it was a large first-scale regional competition across 9 countries in West Africa, and Waccbip was one of the top centers that was successful in the selection. And it's really, I say this because it shows that the top quality scientific research and education aspects has gone throughout. I mean, we are now in 2021, and that initial investment back in 2014 or so has grown and shown that with the right opportunities, funding, and the right instruments, the sky is the ceiling in terms of scientific response and the work that has been done so far at the Waccbip Center. Very briefly, in terms of the actual impact that Waccbip has had, it's very clear both at the national level, and it's very nice to see the Nguchi Institute part of this discussion. And I think that partnership has been so strong and fundamental to the response, but also at the regional level, because Waccbip is also a regional center that is supporting not only Ghana, but building the capacity within our sub-region, because infectious diseases is an issue that doesn't only affect one country, but it crosses borders, and building that scientific capacity within our within our countries and within our continent, doing the testing, the thousands and thousands of samples that have been done within Waccbip, but also the genomic sequencing. And here, this is something that is super important to understand where the viruses are coming from, how they're spreading. And Waccbip is one of our several centers. We also have the famous Africa Centers of Excellence of Infectious Genomic Diseases, ACEGID, that is working so collaboratively with Waccbip. And in terms of the education side, because right now I know the conference is focused very much on the applied research, which is excellent, but at the education level as well, in terms of the master's program, in terms of the training program, in terms of training the trainers that are able to continue this, not only now, but in the future, it's also fundamental to the role of the work being done. And I'm happy that the partnerships with Africa Academy of Sciences, in terms of the quality aspects, that is also super important. And we've seen the international accreditation of the programs at Waccbip. And we've seen the improved teaching and learning environment with the building that you're probably sitting in right now, funded through the ACE. And very important that the right labs and the right technical centrifuge or bioinformatics systems, you name it, is available to the students to allow them to do this top level work. And I always, reference Prof. Gordon's work. He was one of the groundbreakers when it came to getting international accreditation. I know that leadership and the strong support from the university management, the rector, the vice chancellor, and the government, it's all an enabling environment to support the success of the center. The center is not an island of excellence on its own. It is important that the work being done there is also integrated into University of Ghana and also into the national system in Ghana and the regional scientific response as well. So I'll stop there and just say a super thank you to everyone that is connected. I saw a very rich discussion with a lot of fellows and various researchers, and I'll try and join in. But congratulations to the team, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Himdad. If we have the president of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Emeritus Professor Safadede, if he's online can do his remarks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gordon, and distinguished participants to this very important conference. I bring you warm greetings from the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Gordon Awandare is a fellow of the Academy, and we've been following his leadership in bringing together the core of scientists to address critical national problems. It's a delight to know the role the center is playing both locally and internationally. We at the Academy are privileged to have him as a fellow and see to other young scientists to leadership in the scientific arena. We would like to wish you well as you develop Waccbip to higher and higher levels, and also new programs that will help anchor science in national development. The theme of your conference is looking at lessons from the pandemic. And I can say that your center and other centers have shown that the scientists are needed to solving critical national problems. We wish to encourage you to continue on this effort so that those who take national policy decisions will recognize the importance in investing in scientists for helping in solving critical national problems, especially if they are based within our own countries. On this note, I would like to thank you for the invitation to the Academy, and I'm sure that fellows of the Academy will participate fully in this conference, and we wish you well as you proceed. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. President. Okay. Is there anybody else online? No, okay. So we'll now come here and we take our remarks from the Deputy Director General, GTEC, Dr. Ahmed Jinapo.
Vice Chancellor, who sits in as the chairman for this occasion. As I was introduced, my name is Ahmed Jinapo. I work with the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, a body that came about as a result of the coming into being of the erstwhile National Council for Tertiary Education and the National Accreditation Board. I stand here on behalf of the Commission and the Director General, Professor Mohamed Salifu, who should have been here, but unfortunately, he happens to be at another very important program. He congratulates you for your 5th conference. It's not something that is easy to be done. And he wants me to inform you that he's fully in support of what you are doing. And the Commission has always demonstrated its commitment to supporting bodies like yours through the Africa Center of Excellence. In fact, not too long ago, somewhere in May, we came here to visit and to more or less have engagements with you relative to what you've been doing. Now I go back to the topic or the theme for this conference, building sustainable research capacity in Africa, lessons from the pandemic. I know during this 3-day conference, a lot of lessons are going to be brought up, but one thing that I want to stand on relative to the address by the director had to do with the kind of encouragement and happiness that he had when the center, and specifically him, was consulted on a number of occasions when the president was about to speak. I think the refreshment that comes with it also needs to raise our consciousness of the need for a synergy or the need for a strong relationship between research academic, and policy. In fact, if there is any lesson that, for me, emanated from this pandemic, then the responses, it is very, very important for whatever we do in the four corners of the academic environment to be connected to what happens in society or policy, so to speak. Because this pandemic, disastrous as it's been, has put Waccbip at the center of the relevance of academia to national development and societal developmental aspirations. And I think on that note, it is very important for Waccbip to be applauded for taking a central role at a time that we were so challenged that we didn't know where to go. I think Waccbip deserves a hand of applause. And once I speak to the commendation of Waccbip, I think the leadership that was demonstrated by the director is also worthy of commendation. In the sense that I think most people probably never heard of the name Awandare, even in the four corners of this university. But by the unfortunate incidents of COVID-19 and the central role that he played, today that name is a name that, at least once it is mentioned, it is associated with what? COVID-19 in Ghana. Let's give him a hand of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by stating that well, a number of students here who aspire to be what most of these important individuals who have just spoken want to be. And I must say, my boss happens to be a very good friend of the director of this center. In fact, he refers to him as patron. I don't know what patron means, but when I see him call him patron with another patron sitting here, Professor Eric Dankwa, and I see the way they relate and they fraternize, it becomes amazing and refreshing. And sometimes I ask myself, I mean, these are, excuse me to say, ordinary Africans, black people who probably came from nowhere, who couldn't have gotten to where they are. But what inspires me and what I want to share with you, and it goes back to the topic, lessons from the pandemic, is that whatever you are doing, you do it and do it well. If you are a scientist and you know the consequences of being in science, the difficulty and challenges that is associated with science in this part of our world, you cannot going in half prepared. You can only succeed if you do it well. Today, we are celebrating Waccbip because the director, whatever he's doing it well. Tomorrow, we'll be celebrating Waxy because whatever the director is doing, he's doing it well. So I will leave you with this message that in as much as you believe in what you are doing, you have to do it and do it well. Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jinabo, for the excellent message and for the kind words to me and to Waccbip. I would like to just say that I'm just the voice of a lot of people. There's so many people who spend working to produce the data that I can communicate to government and also talk about in the media and inform the people. So we have something that we call the Waccbip machine. So many people are involved in making the machine work, from cleaners to drivers to professors. So this is credit to the entire machine. All right, thank you. So Dr. Nsiasari is online to do the formal opening. After that, we'll move straight to the keynote speech today, and then we would wrap up. So I think we should be done by 12. So Dr. Nsiasari is the Presidential Advisor on Health and one of our partners in the COVID-19 fight. So he would give some remarks and then formally open the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gordon. The Pro-Vice Chancellor and the Chairperson for this occasion, all protocols observed. I'm very happy to be invited this morning to join you, especially at this time that the whole country is fighting of an imminent third wave, or we're already in the third wave. On behalf of the President and on behalf of the government, I say a big thank you to all of you, especially to Professor Awandare and his group for the good work that they've been doing for Mother Ghana. Through the West Africa Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens, Ghana has been able to be doing genomic sequencing together also with what the work that Noguchi is doing at University of Health and Allied Sciences is also doing. I'm very happy that at least we can pinpoint the different variants which are coming into the country. And we are very grateful to all the 3 centers who have been helping us in this direction. This is exactly what one of the earlier speakers said, a collaboration between the scientists, academia, and policymakers. We want to do this so that Ghana becomes one of the hubs for manufacturing of vaccines. As you are all aware, His Excellency the President has formed a committee which is chaired by eminent scientist, Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng, former Minister for NIST. The committee is working around the clock to make sure that Ghana becomes a vaccine production country, and if not even for the country, for the West Africa sub-region or for Africa sub-region. The committee is working assiduously towards that. And we know that the committee cannot work without the academia, without the scientists. They're working closely with the scientists in the various universities, and West Africa's Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens is one of them. We are hopeful that through the good work that you are doing at the center, and together with Noguchi and other centers, we'll be able, maybe one day, very soon, come out with our own candidate vaccine. You know, you are equal to the task, you have the requisite people to do it. We, as a committee, have also been talking seriously how to make sure that we make University of Ghana and its centers also very much put into place so that they can also do their best through technology transfer, human resources, capacity building, and also making sure that we get the necessary equipment to work with. We hope that together with the private sector, we should be able to do this and do it as quickly as possible. We are very happy that you continuously be working, even though the resources are good you are doing, and together as a country, we come out very strong out of this pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught the whole globe a lesson. And what we have learned from it is that we have to be self-sufficient in a lot of things that we are doing. It's helping us move so that we're able to also add manufacturing countries in the world will do it. And we are going to make sure that we do it together with all of you, with the academia, with the scientific societies, with the scientists, with everybody who matters, so that together we put this country at a stage where everybody will look at Ghana as a hub for production of vaccines. We want to make sure, from what the African Union have said, that by the year 2040, we should be able to manufacture about 40% of the vaccines that we use in Africa, as compared to now that only 1% is manufactured here, and 99% of all our vaccines that we use both for EPI and also for other vaccines through importation. We believe strongly that we have the men and the women, we have the scientists, and we can use them and use them appropriately, and we can achieve whatever we want to achieve. On that note, I'll say another big thank you to you, especially personally for inviting me to be part of this important conference and also to open the conference. I didn't know I was the one going to open the conference. So I'll take this opportunity to officially open the conference, and I hope that all the things that we are going to talk about, the decisions that you take will also be made available to government and to the president so that together we move this country forward. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you. I hope and I pray that we are going to have a very fruitful 3-day conference, which will be to the benefit of Ghana. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nsiansari. Please extend our regards to the president. I'm sure he's watching now on Zoom, so.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to go to the keynote address. So I think if you want to sit here so you can see the presentation well, and then after that, we take the closing remarks. Okay, good. So it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and my sister, who happens to be from Zimbabwe, where their president enjoyed one of our distinguished ladies, and so they are our eternal in-laws. So I hope all of you know that that the legendary President Mugabe, came in here and took a wife at some point. And so Francisca and I, we've been bargaining about how to compensate Ghana for that, given how successful Mugabe has become. Okay, so Francisca is a professor in global health, infection, and immunity at the University of Edinburgh. She's also the deputy director for the Tackling Infections to Benefit Africa, better known as TIBA partnership, and the co-director of the Global Health Academy at the University of Edinburgh. She's an award-winning pioneering researcher, a global health research leader, focusing on infectious diseases. She has made extraordinary contributions to combating neglected tropical diseases in Africa and empowering African scientists to be globally competitive. She sits on several reputable advisory bodies on the global level. A few include the WHO Africa Regional Directors Advisory Board, the UK government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, which is formerly known as DFID, now known as FCDO, their Science Advisory Group, the UK Research and Innovation, the UKRI, Global Challenges Research Fund Strategic Advisory Group, and very close to home, the Hideo Noguchi Africa Prize Selection Committee. She's on that committee. She's a fellow of the Zimbabwe Academy of Sciences, fellow of the African Academy of Sciences, and a fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. This year has been a very successful year for her. She was selected as one of the 2021 Aspen New Voices Fellows, and also as a TED Fellow. She, outside of science, is an artist and a philanthropist. And she gives away money to people, including athletes and all kinds of people. So you can talk to her after this. So my pleasure to present Professor Francisca Mutapi.
Very much, Gordon. I am sitting with a screen with just my slides in front of me. So I'll be very grateful if somebody shouts back, yes, if they can see my slides. So at least I know I'm not talking to myself.
Can't see them yet. We see the screen, but it's blank.
Oh dear. Okay. Let me try again.
Yes, maybe you can stop share and reshare. Let's see.
Can you see them now?
No.
I will stop the share again. I will
Yes.
start again. We see them now?
Yes, now, good.
Great, thank you very much. Sorry about that fast. So, as my colleague and friend Gordon Awandare said, I have met Gordon through many different paths. Initially as one of the reviewers of the Deltas program in Africa. So I can only echo the pride and goodwill and congratulations that my friend and colleague Tom Kariuki has already passed on to Deltas. And of course, the goodwill from the Ghana fraternity as they have been speaking earlier on. So I have been invited to talk about Africa-led science, what that looks like during a global pandemic. And I'm going to talk about this from the TIBA perspective. TIBA is another one of Professor Gordon Awandare's successes because we became part of the Waccbip family, I think in 2017, as a research partnership funded by the UK government. So what does TIBA mean? Let's see if we can get this to move. I'm not having a good technical oh dear. I will keep trying. No, it's not working. I shall try resharing that. Hope that we'll get somewhere. Okay, great. So can you see that, please? Can somebody say? Could somebody please confirm if you can see my screen?
We can see.
Thank you. So after all this excitement, so TIBA stands for Tackling Infections to Benefit Africa. For the Swahili speakers in the room, it also means to cure an infection. It is an Africa-led, wide-ranging, multidisciplinary research program that empowers African scientists to tackle infectious diseases and strengthen epidemic preparedness. Oh dear, so that's gone all the way to the end. Oh, great. I am not having a good, I think we can all go home. I think we can all go home now. We've seen the whole talk. Let's try again. Okay, so there we go. TIBA is represented in 9 African countries, of which Ghana is over here. You can see is one of our partners. Our leadership is as follows. We have a director, Professor Mark Woolhouse, and he's supported here by his 2 co-deputy directors, myself and our colleague from KZN in South Africa. In each of the TIBA partner countries, we have a PI, and you can see yours truly here in the corner. That's Professor Gordon Awandare representing TIBA Ghana. We also work with centers of excellence at the University of Edinburgh, represented here, and colleagues in the pharma industry. As you've already heard, Waccbip is a data production machine. It is a lab-based machine, and this is reflected in all the other TIBA partner countries. We are all lab scientists. We generate scientific evidence and information. We alone cannot translate this into health benefits. We need the input of specific partners, very important strategic partners, and these are the ones at the bottom here. Ministries of health in each of those countries play an important role, and I'm absolutely delighted to see the representation of the Ministry of Health in Ghana present at Waccbip's conference today. We also work with our colleagues at the African Academy of Sciences, both the AAS and IESA, and again, real fantastic support from our colleagues and friends led by Tom Kariuki there. The African Union is a very important stakeholder for TIBA, and we work with the technical wing, ALDA NEPAD, and of course, our World Health Organization Regional Office, WHO Afro. TIBA has a set of values and aims. We have 4 values. We are Africa-led, so all the science that TIBA does is suggested by and led by our partners in the African countries. We are shifting the center of gravity to Africa so that decisions of health prioritization of what should be funded and what should be researched are set by our African colleagues. We believe in inclusive engagement, so from the community to the scientist, to the Ministry of Health, and to the policymaker and stakeholder who funds any interventions, and then back to the community, because without the community uptake and buy-in, we cannot implement any interventions. And then finally, our partnerships are equitable. So TIBA has a budget. Well, we started off with a budget of about £7 million funded for by the UK government through NIHR. 80% of that is spent in Africa by the African partners, because this is supposed to be really showing transformative partnership that is progressive. We also have several aims. The 4 aims of TIBA are: first, to improve diagnosis of infection and disease, as well as surveillance; to improve deployment of existing drugs, vaccinations, and treatments; enhance local capacity to develop new interventions; and improve management of endemic and epidemic diseases. And it is this last one that we are all discussing today in terms of how we have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that last aim is captured in TIBA through our work package 6, our emergency response package. And we deliver the work of this in 4 different ways. First, by supporting the development of field diagnostics. So this is a portable mean iron. I have specifically chosen this because of its relevance to COVID. So this is a field diagnostic for viral infections. TIBA advocates the sharing of resources and data, which is represented here by our genomic data. TIBA has been working to capacitate real-time genomic sequencing and analysis. And at this stage, I am not embarrassed at all to share a large part of the credit that has allowed Waccbip and a whole lot of other African institutions to lead in this emergency response in sequencing. Because in 2018, TIBA put together a training package for real-time genomic sequencing for viruses. And I'm even more delighted to say that that training workshop, which attracted over 23 scientists from about 15 countries in Africa, was hosted and co-run by Waccbip. So this is a photograph here of the team being trained in this at Waccbip, really preempting the need for this technology when we did have the COVID pandemic. So I can talk for the rest of the day on this because of the pride that TIBA shares in this, but I won't. I think it's enough for you today. The 4th one is maintaining resilience in health systems. So you can see here a photograph from 2019. So this is myself joining a group of Zimbabweans who were meeting the then UK Minister for Africa. And what we were doing at this meeting was discussing the UK's response to the cyclone Idai, which devastated a lot of Southern Africa, including Zimbabwe. And the issue here was, where do we put our money? Do we put our money in housing people, providing food? And I was arguing at that meeting that what we need to do is prioritize maintaining resilience in the health system, because the long-term impact of the cyclone would take its toll on people's health for years afterwards if we did not protect the health system. And I'm delighted to say that the UK government took this on board and did put some funding towards maintaining the resilience of the Zimbabwe health system. So what have we actually done during the pandemic? Well, TIBA's approach has been twofold. We've had in-country responses and research, such as what's beautifully highlighted here by Waccbip, but we've also had a continental response. And that continental response has really been led by a team in Edinburgh, because everybody else in country has been busy focusing in country. So we have been looking at the global picture in Africa. We've had a team that's really a large team. And you can see myself and our director at the bottom here. And this team has been involved in 2 main pieces of work. First has been data-driven research looking at the epidemiology, the genome sequencing, mitigation strategy, and testing capacity of SARS-CoV-2 in Africa. And the second bit has been laboratory and public health research to support our colleagues in WHO Afro, and of course to conduct basic scientific research to inform us on a bit more about COVID-19, because of course we don't want to just wait for research and information from other countries or other continents to inform what's going on the ground in Africa. So this is what sort of outputs that we've got from this analysis. The first one is the epidemic situational report. TIBA produces every week an analysis or a synthesis of the WHO Afro data on the epidemic in Africa. We do this work in collaboration with our colleagues at WHO Afro. So we get the raw data and we synthesize it, and I shall show you some of what we've done beyond producing this. We have also produced testing report, so the capacity to test for COVID-19 in all the African countries that are member states of the WHO, Afro. And we've also looked at mitigation strategies, and this work was really mostly based in our TIBA partner countries to look at what has worked, what hasn't worked, how can we improve this by learning best practices from other countries. Now, all this information is available on the TIBA webpage with the link here. So if you would like to receive our weekly update on the epidemic in Africa, please do sign up on our webpage. We issue this to anybody who's interested every week. In addition to those reports, our work on that training workshop in 2018 from Ghana has now been extended in East Africa, led by our colleagues in TIBA, Kenya. And of course, at the end of the day, all this work we're doing to support our WHO Afro director and her team. So occasionally you'll see myself or our director, Professor Makura, so any of the team members of TIBA supporting the director in her press briefings. So what have we learned about Africa's epidemic? So what I have here is an example of the synthesis of the data. We're looking at weekly cases from the start of the epidemic all the way to the second wave, the beginning of the second wave this year. So this is a movie which I'm going to run a little bit and I will speed up, otherwise we'll be here all morning. And what this work is doing is looking at changes in the number of cases or deaths, and it tells us things like the doubling time. So if we look here, 0 means there are no cases, and 2 or greater than 2 means that the size of the epidemic is doubling every week. And what we can see as the map changes color is that cases have been very heterogeneous. Sometimes you have a small blip or a peak in a country, and this changes. And what we have been able to do is to summarize that. So if I speed this up a little bit, you can see when our first peak was in Africa there, and then I can continue the movie right up to where we were at the beginning of the second wave. We can then take some summary data to let us know, and this is important for our continental bodies such as WHO Afro and the African Union for planning as to where to be looking to put a lot of resources. So here is a summary, looking at the daily new cases in WHO Afro member states. And you can see in blue, South Africa, and in purple, the rest of Africa. And this is again, looking at the beginning of the epidemic all the way up to January this year. And what this tells you is that the number of new cases in South Africa alone was much, much higher than that in the rest of Africa put together. And this is also the case with daily new deaths. So obviously South Africa is suffering, is bearing the brunt of COVID-19 in Africa. So where are we in terms of the third wave? Well, this is from our situational report, the one that I've just mentioned, from last Friday on the 15th of July. And these are exactly the same maps that I've been showing, and that map on the movie is represented here in the bottom. But please don't scrunch your eyes to see that. The bits that I'd like you to concentrate on are these 2 graphs here. So you can clearly see here total number of reported cases in Africa and the total number of reported deaths on the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave. And the bit I really would like to draw your attention to is this third wave here, because what we're beginning to see is that that third wave looks like it's beginning to turn, it's beginning to go down. Now, this will be fantastic news for the continent. Obviously, I cannot say this with complete certainty. It's more hope than certainty at the moment, but a few more weeks of data will be able to confirm if we really have seen the worst of the third wave. Obviously, the number of cases will be ahead of the number of deaths. So even after the number of cases has turned, we might see that the number of deaths is still rising. And this kind of information is very important for our continental bodies to plan ahead. In addition to synthesizing the information, we also want information that we can act on in future. And our team in Edinburgh has been working with our colleagues at WHO Afro, look at predictors of the date of the first case and the first wave per capita mortality. This is important because it informs our preparedness for the next epidemic. So what we have done, we've taken all the data for the WHO Afro countries and mapped for each country in red boxes here, the day that the first case was recorded in that country, and also in green here, the day that the first death from COVID was recorded in that country. And we've asked the question, what could predict this? What do we need to know when a country would record its first case or when it would record its first death? We've done this by analyzing a whole lot of predictors. Again, a microscopic slide here. Please take my word for it. It's got 19 predictors that we tested through Cox regression, univariate and multivariate. And we looked at several of these predictors, and only 3 came up as significant predictors. They were urban population, so the size of the urban population, the volume and traffic of international travel prior to the first case of COVID, and the number of neighbors who have testing capacity. Now, these seem obvious. We know that from the transmission dynamics of SARS-CoV-2, that a concentrated population, mostly indoors with a lot of physical interaction, is a risk factor for transmission. And therefore, urban population does not come as a surprise. Secondly, international travel allows the seeding of the virus from other countries, and therefore that is no surprise. And finally, of course, if your neighbors can test and they can detect their first case, you will be looking for yours as soon as you know that it is around. And therefore, that one also comes as no surprise. So the way we interpret these predictors is that they were expected, and therefore they demonstrate the validity and utility of the data that WHO Afro member countries have been producing. Now, this is really important because of all the doubts and information that was being expressed early on in the pandemic that, oh, Africa will not be able to generate useful data or reliable data. Well, I'm sorry, this is the evidence that shows that we can, and we did. And we can take this further on and look at the predictors of the first wave per capita mortality. Again, 19 predictors put in the model. We used a Poisson model for univariate and multivariate analysis. We had 3 significant predictors: the urban population, the international travel, and HIV prevalence. And how do we interpret this? Well, urban population, again, high transmission settings are favorable to the COVID-19 transmission. International travel allows widespread seeding. And HIV prevalence is an interesting one because we don't think HIV itself is causative of that mortality, but we think HIV is a good proxy of a whole lot of other confounders that are captured in the HIV prevalence. So HIV prevalence looks like it is indicating a vulnerable population. We're very excited about this work. We're currently writing it up, and hopefully it will be published within the next month, if not at the end of this month. Then go on to look at the genome sequencing that you've heard a lot of so far, that our colleagues at Waccbip have been leading. So we looked at the data that's been put in GSAID. GSAID is the public database for the deposit of genome sequences. And as we mentioned earlier, one of TIBA's pillars is that we make all our scientific data freely available to allow more comprehensive and better analysis. And we've also benefited from this because the analysis we did here is based on data that doesn't come only from TIBA countries. But I'm particularly proud that GSAID has had contributions from TIBA partners whose work the sequencing has been partly or wholly funded by TIBA. And these are TIBA Kenya, TIBA Ghana, Rwanda, and Botswana. So what have these sequences shown us on the continental level? Well, there's been sequences from 36 African countries, the majority of which, 47%, come from South Africa. We know from the sequence lineages that Africa's epidemic has arisen as a result of multiple separate introductions of SARS-CoV-2 infections, mostly from Europe. We also know that there are several lineages circulating in Africa. So at the time we updated this, which I think is about a week ago, there were several variants of interest circulating. I won't go through all of them. I'll just point this one here, B1617.2, first identified in India, which is the Delta variant, and it is circulating in South Africa, Congo, Uganda, Botswana, and I think Zimbabwe, and by now probably have been updated to include other African countries. The second aspect I'd like to highlight are these two variants, one first identified in Brazil and another one first identified in the USA, which are also variants of concern, but they have not been found in Africa so far. But presumably with more sequencing, we might be able to find these if they're circulating on the continent. Now, the thing to say about variants is there are thousands of variants arising in COVID. Most of those will have no public health consequence, and therefore they're not variants of interest. The ones we particularly look for and record are the variants that result in a change in the behavior of the virus, either in its terms of transmissibility or in its ability to cause more serious disease. What have we done with this information? Well, we published it. We published the first analysis of the SARS-CoV-2 genome circulating in Africa in this paper. On the back of that, I was able to do a feature story for WHO Afro on what the variants mean in Africa and their consequences in public health terms. You can find this on the WHO Afro webpage. And of course, supported WHO Afro director, Dr. Moeti, in her press briefing on variants in Africa earlier this year. Has also been working on strengthening health systems, particularly practice and policy during the COVID pandemic. So how have we done this? A couple of examples. We've looked at protocols for recruiting students for COVID-19 emergency responses, learning from countries that have done this before, especially for Ebola. So what's the best practice we can learn? We've also looked at global health governance in sub-Saharan Africa. So this is really looking at who pays for what and when. This has become pertinent as a lot of African countries now try to source vaccines. Who's going to pay for them and how do we get them to the countries? And most recently, just last week, my colleague Jeff Banda led this work on local manufacturing, local supply chains, and health security in Africa, looking at the lessons from COVID-19. So this ranges from securing PPE to all the other consumables and interventions we need for COVID-19. An Out of Africa fellow, I wanted to highlight this work because this is work by a fellow who was working in TIBA, funded by TIBA, but facilitated by our colleagues at African Academy of Sciences. He's been looking at protocols for strengthening research ethics for COVID-19 in Africa. And this is work in collaboration with the African Union, Pandora, and our colleagues at Africa CDC. Again, all this information is publicly available on our webpage. Please do take a look. I have been leading the call for the increase of medical oxygen in Africa. We highlighted in this paper the critical shortage of oxygen on the African continent. We did this in May 2020 because we could see this coming. For any patient that ends up in hospital in Africa, the thing that's going to make the difference between life and death if you're a COVID patient is the availability of oxygen. And we don't have enough in Africa. And we've been making a rallying call since May 2020 that we needed to do something. And I was beginning to lose hope because it seemed it was going without response. But I was delighted to see this last month that global oxygen suppliers have committed to closing the oxygen gap in low to middle income countries, which means Africa can benefit. Now, this could be a really good legacy of COVID-19 on the African continent because medical oxygen is not only relevant for COVID-19, but it is also relevant for all the pneumonias and other surgical procedures such as childbirth. Now, if we move on to country-specific research, the two countries that I have been working with, I am being selfish here, are TIBA Ghana and TIBA Zimbabwe, but I know that all the other countries have been doing specific research, which I'll highlight at the end. TIBA Ghana, you've heard a lot of their work. I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm just highlighting one of the papers here, again, because I was involved with that work. So please do listen to the rest of their presentations today to hear what they have been doing. But I've been working closely with TIBA Zimbabwe, and the work I'd like to share now comes from TIBA Zimbabwe. In TIBA Zimbabwe, we've been doing work really to support the response in health workers. And what we have here is the two things that prompted the work. donation by the Jack Ma Foundation of serological tests to Africa, and the shortage of PPE in Zimbabwe. And the kinds of work we've taken are validating of diagnostic tests, identification of patient-facing health staff, diagnostic test uptake by health workers, risk factor for infection and seropositivity, and seroepidemiology. All this work was conducted to inform the Ministry of Health and also the WHO for their recommendations to countries. This work was collaborative between TIBA Zimbabwe, University of Zimbabwe, National University of Science and Technology, NGO I Am for Bulawayo fighting against COVID-19, and the University of Zimbabwe. So what did we do? We put together a team highlighted here. The team met with the Minister of Health and the Minister of Science and Innovation Technology in Zimbabwe, and we made our rallying call to the health workers in Zimbabwe to participate in the study. The study was very simple, even though the protocol doesn't look like it. The two things I'd like you to focus on are the ones highlighted in white. Basically, we're comparing antibody testing and PCR testing in health workers. Through that work, we were able to partition the health workers from 713 staff members based at 24 out of 35 health facilities in the city of Bulawayo, Zimbabwe's second largest city. We focused on Bulawayo because it was the reference city for migrants coming in from South Africa or people returning home from South Africa, as well as people coming from Zambia. So if we're going to have good data on COVID in Zimbabwe, this would be a good place to start. We partitioned the health workers by occupation, job station, prevalence of COVID-like symptoms, and their known risk factors for COVID. And basically what that work confirmed was that the seroprevalence was evenly distributed across all the different occupations. And we were able to confirm risk factors that had been seen in other parts of the world. So, conclusion of that particular study, we could see that all patient-facing staff required PPE, not just the doctor and the nurse. The cleaners, as well as the catering staff who spent a lot of time at the patient bedside, did need PPE, which was originally not thought of. Age is a risk factor, again, just confirming that our data and our protocol was reliable, and that we needed more data and studies for this work. This work was conducted around May, June last year, so it is not surprising that we needed more work. What did we do with those findings? We took them to the Ministry of Health in Zimbabwe through a policy brief, which covered knowledge, attitudes, and practices of the health workers, the reliability of the SARS-CoV-2 testing protocols we had and the testing procedures. We also put together a protocol for reducing nosocomial infections and community infection from the health workers, as well as the kinds of data that was required. So what did the government of Zimbabwe do with this? They took on board what we said, and they used it to inform their PPE procurement and distribution policy. And that work was covered in the Herald, a daily newspaper in Zimbabwe. The last piece of science that I'm going to talk about was the SARS-CoV-2 in Africa. I'm sure you've all heard that the epidemic in Africa has been different than on any other continents. And one of the features of this epidemic has been the lower levels of cases and deaths, albeit, of course, it's a burden we'd rather not have had, but our burden is lower than on other continents. So what are the reasons for this? There have been many suggestions, including our younger demography, as well as our outdoor lifestyle. But my research group, because we are immunoepidemiologists, we were interested in the role of cross-protection from other previous coronavirus infections. There are 7 known coronaviruses named here by where they were first detected, and the common cold is very prevalent in Africa. So we asked the question, could other coronaviruses, particularly the common cold, be protecting some of the African populations? Do this work, we wanted to characterize the antibody responses of Zimbabweans. So this is a typical setup, a mother, grandmother, and a young person. We collect their blood, take it to the lab, look at their seroreactivity against the rapid diagnostic lateral flow tests. We used this test here, the Wuhan test. Why did we do that? Because our colleagues in Ghana who believe in the power of partnership had already done a series of tests using different tests to determine which one performed better against PCR and also for the purposes of the work we wanted to do. And we concluded from the data in Ghana and from what we preliminary studies in Zimbabwe that this was the best kit for us to use. This is what the results look like for anybody who hasn't seen the results from a lateral flow test. See, the control means your assay has worked. If you don't have that line there, it means that the test is invalid. And then you can look at whether you've got IgG or IgM responses. And what did we find in Zimbabwe? We found that for data collected before the SARS epidemic, so between the 8th and 14th of November in 2019 in 2 villages, amongst people aged 1 to 88, we had a 40% seroprevalence of SARS-CoV-2 reactivity, which is surprising given that these people had never seen this pathogen before. So we really wanted to dig deeper into this. So we went back and looked at the samples we had archived. We had 692 samples archived from 3 to 95-year-olds and collected from year 2000 to 2019 across Zimbabwe, across the north, east, south, and central Zimbabwe. And then I wanted to see if this sera was also cross-reactive. And yes, it was. We looked at it by age and by year of collection. But this wasn't enough because we wanted to determine the molecular basis and not the level of cross-reactivity. So we went one further. What we did was we pooled samples across the years here, across the areas, across the age range, and then made 10 pools. 10 pools consisted of 9 samples, 9 pools from Zimbabwe who are either positive for IgM, positive for IgG, or positive for both. Also, we had a positive sample from a convalescent patient in the United Kingdom. And then, of course, we had the sample that was negative in Zimbabwe on the RDT. What did we do with that? Well, we wanted to use that to screen the entire proteome of all the coronaviruses. Here are our 7 coronaviruses. We chopped up the proteins into peptides of 13 amino acids. This would overlap 11 amino acids. We looked bioinformatically at which ones were redundant so that we didn't end up putting lots of redundant proteins. And then we took those peptides and put them on a peptide chip. So this is what the chip looks like. It's just under 44,000 peptides, 13 amino acids long, in duplicate, with an overlap of 11 amino acids because we really didn't want to miss anything. We put them on a chip and then we screened them with the Zimbabwe sera, diluted at 1 in 500, 1 in 100, and 1 in 10, and looked at the IgM and IgG response. The IgM response lights up in green, the IgG response lights up in red. Here are some of the results. We focused on the spike protein and nuclear protein because these are the 2 proteins that are on the rapid diagnostic test. So if your rapid diagnostic test says you're positive, you should at least be responding to one of these proteins, the spike protein or the nucleocapsid protein. Here at the bottom is the Zimbabwean negative control with no peaks as expected. Here, number 9 is the UK sample, which we expect to be positive and we expect to see peaks. And what we do see though, which is interesting, is that these are IgM and IgG responses in these Zimbabwean sera that have never seen SARS-CoV-2. Look at this. This pool is highly reactive against SARS-CoV-2. So they're really very interested to find out what is happening with that. And we can look at that analysis. I won't go in great detail over this one for you. For here is across different pools and here across the different coronaviruses. And what we see here is with CD6, this pool, very, very reactive across all the peptides from all the different coronaviruses in the spike protein. So the question then is, what is stimulating the antibody response to SARS-CoV-2 proteins, especially in the peptides that are not conserved? So these peptides only occur in SARS-CoV-2 and nowhere else. So where are they coming from? What is stimulating this response? So this is what we're working on. We're analyzing the data, and I hope to have this published again within the next month. So please do keep your eye out for that. Come back quickly to what everybody else in the TIBA partnership has been doing to respond to the COVID pandemic, because this is a nice opportunity to show off what a partnership can do when we work together. So here, you know about Ghana's sequencing work. Here's TIBA Rwanda. They tweeted this because they sequenced for the first time a virus circulating in their country using the technology and the expertise that TIBA provided through that training workshop run through Waccbip. And we're really delighted about this because several countries, TIBA Rwanda and TIBA Botswana in particular, their governments have now nationalized the work that TIBA has been doing in those countries for sequencing, put in a lot more funding and a lot more training to ensure that they're serving the country. Work in Zimbabwe is reported in this newspaper article in Zimbabwe. TIBA Sudan has also been leading responses in their country. TIBA Kenya, lots more sequencing. This is a policy brief. Have been working on beyond COVID, what do we do about the Africa health ecosystem? And I really like this because this is TIBA Zimbabwe and us in Edinburgh lobbying our industry partners to make donations of a mitigation strategy. So these are masks that Merck donated to Zimbabwe. You can see them offloaded in TIBA Zimbabwe's office to donate to health workers as part of the COVID mitigation strategies. So on that note, I would like to thank our funders. I would like to really highlight the fact that TIBA leaves no one behind and that we really follow the African proverb that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go together, if you want to go far, we go together. So as a partnership, I hope I've demonstrated to you what we have been able to achieve by going together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Francisca, for an excellent tour de force around all the issues concerning COVID on the continent. So we would round up the opening ceremony now. We're supposed to have Q&A, but we've used up all our time. So we'll just round up and go for quick photographs and then come back. But before then, we're going to have the closing remarks by the chair, and then we can go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will attempt to summarize what we've gone through the past 2.5 hours. But there are four key points that I've picked up this morning. And I must admit, I've really enjoyed this morning's session. I've learned a lot. The first is we need to congratulate the Center for going through the Delta 2 call. And this is something that already we are proud of. And I'm hoping that the miracle behind the Waccbip machine will be shared with a bigger university so that other units will see this light. The second is the importance of academia research policy linkage. And I think Waccbip has demonstrated that perfectly. The third is the need for collaboration. And here, collaboration within the country, and then with the rest of the world, especially within Africa, so that we can fight this pandemic. The last that I want to stress is how Waccbip and in general in the science community encourage females to be part of this, or to encourage females into science. And I'm hoping that, I'm sure after this faith conference, Waccbip will start planning the 6th. And I'm hoping that we'll see science or effort being made by Waccbip, since they are leading in most of the things that we've discussed this morning, how we can bring females into science. I have daughters and one is doing science, and I appreciate the challenge they go through. But I think the machine of Waccbip, I think, is being greased enough and it's working. So I know it will also work. So on this note, I will wish you all a successful 3 days conference. And I hope you have a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Asante, our Provost for Research. All right, so we've come to the end of the opening ceremony. Before we go, I want to acknowledge some other important personalities that came in. I think we have the Dean of School of Biological Sciences. He was sitting here, he just moved. Okay, Professor Augustine Oklu was here. We see our distinguished Dean for the Business School, University of Ghana Business School. Professor Baule is over there, thank you. Here online, we have some others who have joined online. Let me just check the latest updates so that we acknowledge everybody who has made time to join us. We have Ms. Eccles Andor, who is our Acting Director of Public Affairs. She joined us online. Thank you very much. We have Professor Lamte from the University of Ghana Medical School who joined us online. Thank you. Dr. Daniel Dujome is here from WACI, the Deputy Director of WACI is here. Thank you very much. Our College Secretary, Mr. Emmanuel Bedu is here. He's a strong supporter of Waccbip. Thank you very much. Have I left anybody? Maki Dana wasn't here when I introduced him, so he's now here. Professor Maki Dana is here. He's the Dean of Physical and Mathematical Sciences. I also see Professor Eric Tiburu, who is the chair of our college research board. Professor Elvis Tiburu, who is also one of our Waccbip faculty. Great. So this is the end of the morning session. Oh, I see head of Department of Biomedical Engineering there, Professor Moore. Thank you. Okay. Professor Ginio Helegbe is from UDS. Thank you, one of our collaborators. I see him here. All right. I think I've acknowledged all our invited guests. Okay. So we would go and take some pictures with all protocols observed. Please keep your mask on. Your face will still be seen. So we'll take some pictures briefly outside. And then we will have a short ceremony where the Aruba Secretary General would inspect one of the equipment that they bought for us. They bought us a new sequencer. So they bought us a Nexic 2000, which cost almost 400,000. Through a grant that was facilitated by our ORID. So ORID Pro VC and Aruba Secretary General, we would show them the equipment that has been delivered through this project, and we are very grateful for the support. So thank you. Let's take some pictures and then we'll be back. Waccbip was established as one of the World Bank African Centers of Excellence. And the inspiration behind it is basically that a number of us who were at the Department of Biochemistry and the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, we had trained outside, and we did PhDs in various science disciplines outside the country. When we got back and realized that there was not much by way of facilities to train scientists, we saw this as an opportunity to create an environment which would enable many young scientists to get the opportunity to get the quality of training that we got overseas.
This world-class research center started off as an infectious disease center, but along the line, it's added non-communicable diseases to its focus areas.
Waccbip is providing something to local and regional students that we probably don't have in many places within the country or within the region. Facilities, financial resources, as well as an environment that encourages student learning and research. And that has significantly increased students' output in the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology.
Waccbip has a whole range of collaborators at the institutional, national, regional, and international levels. These collaborations include the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, Ghana, the Department of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Ghana, among other departments, the Ghana Health Service, and the Ministry of Health. The center also has collaborations with institutions within and outside Africa.
Currently, there are about 6 labs in the center, and these labs do research based on the faculty who is in charge of these labs. We have a malaria group that has 3 different units. There's an immunology unit, there's a vaccine development unit, and also a transmission unit in there. We also have a molecular biology lab that has 2 faculty in charge there. One does work with African animal trypanosomes, and the other one, who is myself, works in Borrelia and antimicrobial resistance. We have a huge virology group. They do research, anything that has to do with viruses. So they do HIV research. They even look at some bat viruses and gastroenteric viruses. More recently, too, we've added a COVID lab, and this lab does routine testing for COVID positivity and negativity. And we also look for seroprevalence across the population. So people who have been prior exposed to COVID, but maybe have been asymptomatic, so they don't know whether they had COVID or not. And we've actually just recently published a paper on our findings.
The virology laboratory of Waccbip was set up right from the beginning with one main lab, and they were doing things like rotaviral, research into rotaviral infections in Ghana. The virology lab at Waccbip was also involved in the first identification of a dengue case in Ghana, and also doing HIV research, as well as research on viruses which are in bats, but which might be have a risk of causing disease in humans. So these are filoviruses, the same type of viruses that cause Ebola. So that's work that was being done.
The center currently has 6 research laboratories, namely the Cell Biology and Immunology Lab, commonly known as the Malaria Lab, the Molecular Biology Lab, the Virology Lab, the Medicinal and Natural Products Lab, the Next Generation Sequencing Lab, and the Forensic Biochemistry Lab. At Waccbip, the scientific tools and equipment are always and readily available to students, regardless of the courses being studied at the center.
Really, the driving force was to try to create a world-class research and training environment where young African scientists from across the continent can come here and develop their talent and do high-quality research that can be comparable to research that's done in any part of the world. So basically, that was the vision that we were pursuing.
Throughout my academic journey, I'd always looked for opportunities to come back home. My plan has always been to establish myself, to spend my most productive, my most useful years in Africa and hopefully in Ghana. So even though I studied abroad altogether for 13 years, followed by 6 years as a postdoc also abroad. So altogether, I was away from Ghana for about 18 years. I was always looking for opportunities to return. But during my second postdoc, I actually met Professor Wandare, the director of Waccbip, in London when he came to actually receive an award. That was the first time I heard about Waccbip. And so hearing about Waccbip, hearing what Professor Wandare was trying to do in Ghana, I felt that it was a place that would welcome someone like me, a place that someone like me potentially could thrive. So I began to look for opportunities to return. And I was able to get funding to support my return to Ghana. And so I applied for a position and was appointed as a research fellow. It was basically a fulfillment of something I'd always wanted to do. And Waccbip stood out as a place that, even though it was a young center, was led by somebody who himself was very dynamic, who identified a lot with the ideals that I myself identify with. And so it was somebody that I felt I could work for, somebody that could mentor me.
Waccbip has evolved to become a world-class research center, thriving on initial funding from the World Bank and subsequent support from the Wellcome Trust and the Africa Academy of Science.
We were very fortunate to get the funding through World Bank to establish the Center of Excellence here. And part of that funding gave us a huge chunk of money to buy core equipment that could be used and shared by all faculty in the department and opened up to faculty within the university and within the sub-region. We have a core facility for flow cytometry. We also have a core facility for sequencing of DNA. Just recently, we even upgraded it to include a NextSeq Illumina sequencer, which is probably one of two in the entire Africa. And that has the capacity to sequence both DNA and RNA, which is world-class. We have a confocal microscope core facility, which can be used to take images of cells and for us to understand actual cell biology as it happens in real time. We also have the protein expression lab that I talked about, and we have state-of-the-art equipment in these laboratories that help us, again, make proteins, express proteins, and take it to the next level of trying to identify what these proteins actually do within cells.
Since I've been in the virology department, I've been doing mostly HIV research, that's my specialty, looking at how the different genotypes we have in Ghana affect the ability of treatment and the progression of the disease. And of course, since the pandemic, we have been right at the forefront of doing research of SARS-CoV-2, that's the virus that causes COVID-19 in Ghana. The HIV research that we've done here at Virology, prior to my coming, there's been some findings that in the Ghanaian population, some of the genes that may be involved in progression are deleted in some of the population. Actually, a few of my colleagues did that work. And since I've been here, we've been looking at the new drug which has been introduced in Ghana, dolutegravir, and our data, which is yet to be published, is showing that it is one of the best drugs to be used, and we are also selecting some mutations for this drug.
My experience in Waccbip here has been very great. I came here in 2014. So after my undergraduate, I joined the lab in 2015 and I served as a research assistant. When I entered, I didn't know anything about research, but I've got opportunity through mentorship and training. I've had great experience here. Sure, I think there's fairness in the enrollment process. For what I know, I was fortunate after my first year master's, I was enrolled into the PhD program. Then what I have seen so far, I realized before you get admission to the program, you write in exams and they try to look at gender balance and also the international and the local students. So there's fairness in the selection process. So my PhD thesis or project seeks to develop novel diagnoses for detecting Plasmodium species. So Plasmodium species are parasite that causes malaria, and currently we have RDTs and microscopy at the point of care for detecting the species. But unfortunately, these tools are not sensitive or specific enough for detecting the species. So they are more reliable tools, which are the PCR or molecular-based diagnostic tools. And if I can give you an example, that's what we are using to detect COVID now. But the unfortunate thing is these tools are not readily available in terms of the reagent. So my project seeks to develop these reagents here in Ghana so that we can make them readily available and also cost-effective for detecting infectious diseases.
The center runs 3 programs at the master's level, which includes MPhil in molecular cell biology of cell and infectious diseases, MPhil in biochemistry, and MPhil in molecular biology. Courses offered at the PhD level includes PhD in biochemistry and PhD in molecular and cell biology of infectious diseases. The center also engages the community in its activities from time to time.
What was of common interest to all of us was that we wanted to create a world-class research and training environment to do basic science. Now, this was led by me, but with support from, several colleagues here at the Department of Biochemistry and also at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. In terms of the resources we need sustainable funding, predictable funding. If you look at all the countries that have developed, they have predictable funding for research and for science. If you look at the USA, they have something called the NIH, which they pump billions and billions of dollars in every year as part of their national budget. It's locked in. Ghana, we still don't have that. We've been talking about a research and innovation bill for a long time. Still not been enacted. We need to have such things so that we as scientists, there's a fund that we can apply to access funds to do research and to innovate on a sustainable basis. As we say it, we compete for funds from overseas. And that is not predictable nor sustainable because a lot of the funders, they keep asking us, how much is your government contributing? Okay, we've given you 8 million, we've given you 6 million, we've given you 5 million. How much is your government contributing?
Everybody knows that Africa has problems. Our problems are all over the news. We get offended when people point out only the problem. But it's also very clear that the only people who will solve Africa's problems are Africans themselves. We are waiting for malaria vaccines to be developed in Europe and North America for us to use. We are waiting for people, for President Jimmy Carter to come and eradicate guinea worm in Ghana. If Africa and in Ghana is going to achieve what I believe and we all believe we can achieve, we have to take responsibility for our problems and come up with locally relevant solutions to solve those problems. For me, Waccbip represents a place that is trying to do its bit to contribute towards this. We are trying to train the next generation of scientists, not to come and work at Waccbip. We are training the next generation of scientists to think of ways to solve problems they see in their own communities.
International students are helped through Waccbip to obtain accommodation. And basically what we do is that we liaise with the hostels and the halls on campus and arrange some of the rooms for them before they actually come in. So at Waccbip, we provide at least 2 forms of scholarship. One from the ACE World Bank grant and the other from the Delta's program. But apart from that, there are other opportunities at the university where students can also, and outside the university where students can also apply for fellowship, for example.
Because we are in the tropics, a lot of patients report to the hospitals with high temperature. this is usually attributed to malaria, but we found out that malaria answers, let's say, 40% of those cases. For the other 60%, they are presumptively treated as malaria. And in most cases, the patients keep going back because it's not malaria. So what else is causing it? It's not clearly known. And the diagnostic systems in the hospitals are not advanced enough to take care of a variety of disease conditions. So this project was undertaken by one Nicholas, who looked at a whole panel of pathogens. So this was a discovery project. Okay, so once a child reports with fever and it's not attributed to anything else but the infection, and they check for malaria and malaria is not there, they then take those samples and look for all manner of pathogens. Okay, and they were able to discover a whole variety of viruses and bacterial pathogens that explain those other febrile illness. So going forward, that would, instruct a new way of attending to patients in that category, so that we can. What we haven't done is to develop diagnostics that can be used in the hospitals, but that is the next phase that we can look at. The second is diagnostic technologies that have been developed by two PhD students, Francis Krampa and Felix Ansa. So here they are looking for electronic ways of detecting malaria. Okay, so what we have in the system right now is glucometer. You put a drop of blood and it tells you the level of glucose in your blood. We are trying to do the same for malaria so that people can even test at home, right? And not have to go to the hospital when this becomes available on the market. The third one is a project that concerns a new way of developing antibiotics. And what we are trying to do is to target what we call the genome stability of pathogens. This has not been done before, and we are pioneering that from this center for the first time. And we're hoping that over the years, we will make progress that will lead to the next generation of antibiotics.
The first output that we had from our sequencing was a manuscript, which was published, and that was the first 46 sequences of SARS-CoV-2 in Ghana. We published that last year, and since then we've done almost 1,000 sequences. So we are preparing that also to publish it. And why that is important is we are tracking basically the changes in the virus locally, because there's, if you look at literature or the news, you see how it's changing globally, but you have to know the local outbreak, you have to know the local epidemic. And what we see in Ghana is that sometimes the variants which are increasing are not necessarily what is increasing in the rest of the world. For now, for instance, we have Delta, which is also on the rise in Ghana. But there's another variant which is nobody's talking about, but it's rising almost faster than Delta in Ghana. So that's the sort of things that we do. And when we get the results, we write what we call policy briefs, advising the government that this is what we found. Earlier on in this year, when we did our sequencing of airport samples, and we first found the Alpha variant, that's the UK variant. And then we found it in local circulation, and we wrote it, we communicated to the government, and that was what led to the reinstatement of some of the restrictions, like restricting the funeral size, party size, and things like that. That was as a direct result of the work that we're doing.
The key message that we want to put out there is that Africa has a lot of talent. If you look across the world, there are African scientists doing great things all over the place. Some of these COVID vaccines that we are seeing, African scientists played key roles in developing them so quickly in different countries. If we create the right environment for them,
a lot of these people will come back home. We have already brought 7 scientists, African scientists who were in the diaspora. We brought them here. And the reason why they were able to come back, or they were convinced to come back, is because they came and looked around, like you guys have looked around, and they saw that they can do good science here. And that this environment looks like where they've been working in the UK or in the US. And they are convinced that this is world-class enough. If we create that, we can start to bring all our talent back. And Africa can start to develop our own vaccines, can develop our own drugs. We can be more innovative and build new technologies that we can even export to other parts of the world, and not sit as we are now, waiting for people to develop vaccines, use for their people. When they've had enough, then they share with us. That's where we are now. Okay? That situation has to change. That means we have to take matters into our own hands. That means the African governments have to start to put some money into science on a consistent basis. Let's have a fund, such as we have National Health Insurance Fund, we have GET Fund, we have all these funds that a percentage of the taxes goes directly into that fund every year. So that fund is available for scientists to access. Let's do that. Let's put some money aside for science, because this type of investment have to be done for us to develop. Otherwise, we keep marking time. We keep just treading water. Because if you keep relying on people for your innovations, that means you're not making progress. You know, I keep telling people that if you think about investment in science, think about it like the way we invested in petroleum exploration. You know, ever since I was a child, I was hearing about GMPC spending billions and billions of dollars doing oil exploration. Okay, they didn't find oil until just maybe 10 years ago or less. After spending billions and billions of dollars, nobody complained that they were spending billions of dollars, because they knew that when they found oil, they'll get a lot of money from it. It's the same with science. Don't think about what you'll get.
The African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, Waccbip, was established in 2014 as one of the World Bank's Africa Centers of Excellence. Waccbip is located on the campus of the University of Ghana, Legon.
Waccbip was established as one of the World Bank African Centers of Excellence. And the inspiration behind it is basically that a number of us
So this is an innovation asset. Who's innovation asset? No, these are good assets. These are so this is an actual group asset. That's your innovation rate is called. But your gate is not. Yeah. Do you want to capture the two populations or just? So you need to adjust the gate to be on the P1. And are you still using Cybergreen or Quest?
Yes, I'm using Cybergreen, but I'm not uploading the full cycle.
You use the with Cybergreen.
Yes.
Okay. That's faster, yeah, and it's cheaper.
Yes.
Cheaper than paying around it. Okay, that's good. Anyway, it gives you good guess.
Yes. I could say yes.
Okay, that's good. That's very useful. And can you use it for evasion assay?
No, the evasion assay because it's
well, if you are doing just a simple evasion assay where you just need Cybergreen, you can use it, right?
Yes, but I will first be all part.
Yeah, just for parasitemia. As long as you are not doing clinical sample where you have to label the red cells.
Okay, thanks.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you everyone for staying with us. And for those of our participants who are online, we thank you as well for being part of the program. We are going to move on to the next half. And before we start our student presentations, we have a very short interaction by the Gates Cambridge Fellowship. It's a virtual interaction, so if you are online, please can we zoom them in and let's listen to what they have to tell us.
Okay, thank you. I'm here, I'm Dr. Kofi Boache. I'm here with my colleague, Lawrence. We will do this short presentation or talk. Ordinarily, this should be an hour session, but we've decided I will skip some of the essentials. If you need any further information, you can reach out to us for details. So we've been given 10 minutes. I'll try and stick with that. Now, let me thank Professor Wandari for his earlier talk with the Gates Trust, which is what led to this. I invited him for a talk and he gladly accepted on the COVID situation as we celebrate our 20th anniversary. And as part of it, he said, you're doing this conference. And so it will be helpful to do a quick presentation to the students so that at least they are aware of this scholarship. Now, myself and Lawrence have been beneficiary of the scholarship and we are alumni, and so we're trying to advocate for more students to be able to get access to this scholarship. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. But on a quick note, what is the Gates Scholarship? I'll take you through quickly what the Gates Scholarship is all about. The application process, and then Lawrence will come in with personal experiences, and then we'll take your Q&A, and we'll keep it very short. So what was the scholarship about? The Gates Scholarship was established in 2000 by Gates through the Benevolence Acts of Gates and Melinda Foundation. And the idea was to move a little bit beyond just simple scholarship that recognizes talent to also recognizing leadership by example. And we believe that the work that Waccbip is doing really fits into this particular criteria that the scholarship has set. So it aims to bring out that network of global leaders that will be able to be act as change makers. So that's the focus of the scholarship. And it's important you pay attention to the aim, because the aim is what you need to understand in order to apply and be successful. So who is eligible to apply? The scholarship is open to all except UK students. And the logic is that the UK already has funding for its students. So, and University of Cambridge is based in the UK. So it makes sense to give other people opportunity. The bulk of the scholarship goes to US, about half of it goes to US students for obvious reasons. Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. So in one way, the Gates Foundation is keen to have US students exposure and international network. But thankfully, half of the scholarship goes to international students, and Ghana qualifies under that criteria. There is no age limit. It covers master's students only, not undergrads. And so you are a perfect audience for this scholarship. Master's up to PhD, you stand a very good chance of getting in. There is no age limit like other scholarships. Is one of the, as far as I know, is one of, if not the most generous scholarship in the UK. And it sits at par with the Rhodes Scholarship in terms of what its competition and in terms of the type of students it's looking to recruit. Now, 17,500 for 12 months will seem a lot, but let me also advise you that much of this money will go into your residential fee, okay, what we call the maintenance fee, but it's very generous. It even takes care of your family, and there is hardship, extra money for hardship in case you are faced like the COVID situation. So it's a really generous funding, 200 million over the past 20 years, and it's still ongoing with promise that it will go through into the future. So that's the nature of the scholarship. There is family allowance, academic allowance, hardship funds that you can access apart from the normal scholarship that you get. The funding is such that it creates a community, and that's what we're trying to emphasize. So once you graduate from the funding, there is this huge community that you can tap into. At the moment, we are all alumni of the Gates Scholarship, and that's how Professor Wanda gave the session to the Gates alumni. And these are people in really high places who you can connect with. So you have friends all over the world that you really want to capitalize on. Now, in terms of the application process, how does it work? It's a very simple, straightforward applications process, unlike other scholarships. Once you apply to Cambridge, and all you need to do is to tick a box, okay? You go online, you select your course, and tick a box. Would you like to be considered for all the funding that you are eligible for? Yes, that's all you need to do. Then you have to, on top of it, you'll be considered for all scholarships in Cambridge. But in addition to that, the Gates Scholarship, Cambridge Scholarship kicks in. At the department level, then it moves to the committee level. At the committee level, you need 2 things to add to your application. And we'll look at some the details in a few minutes. These are the things that the scholarship stresses. Of course, intellectual ability, every scholarship will stress that. But in addition to getting this Gates Scholarship, you really need to demonstrate leadership capacity. And Waccbip is already doing this. If you're working in that center, you should be very lucky because you are already showing some kind of leadership, listening to some of the talks earlier on. So your commitment also to change life matters. And of course, what you're doing already fits that, tick that box. So we think you're a very good audience to consider this scholarship. In addition to the normal criteria of intellectual or academic credibility or credentials, these are the 2 important things that come with the Gates Scholarship. You need a statement, and a statement that demonstrates your leadership qualities and your desire to give back to society, right? So this is not just about how intelligent you are, it's your readiness to give back. And it shows in the type of subject that the scholarship seeks to fund. And where you sit is the kind of subject that would be looked upon favorably. And so you have also references. You need to get references to support this. So you don't just say it. Someone is able to confirm what you stand for and what you have been passionate about. This is what I mean by the scholarship is split into 2. So you have around 2, which is where you will fall. And take note of the dates, because if you are thinking about coming next year, you should be thinking about submitting your application before December, latest by the 2nd of December. The deadline keeps changing, but that's how it works. So this is how it works. Once you submit the application, the department considers you in the normal way that they will consider any application. And then this department, if you are chosen for the department, it then ranks you among the other applicants. And those who are qualified are sent to the board, and then the the committee will take it from there in terms of the review, and then you will need to attend an interview as well. And this is where at the end I'll stress that we come in, because we are very concerned about the lack of awareness on the continent as far as this scholarship is concerned, and also the lack of mentoring to help students to be able to access the scholarship. And so some of our colleagues have decided to give up their valuable time to try and mentor students to do well on the interview and also be able to be successful on the scholarship. So that's the process. If you need to apply funding requirement and all that, you can get it on the website. These are some of the alumni that have come through. So I'm showing this so that it doesn't make you feel like it's far off, although the threshold is very high. It's still possible to make it. These are examples of students. So Lawrence is with us here. He will be sharing his experience in a few minutes about how he made it from KNUST to Cambridge and now into a very successful career. So these are examples, but we still insist that it's not enough, because I think in Ghana, we only have about 10 since the beginning of the scholarship. So we think you are very good candidates to try and access the scholarship. The website details are here. If you need further information, you can go on there. And also, I must say, it's very competitive. So if you want to apply, put in the effort and get it. As you can see, international 5,000 last year, only 55 were selected. So you really need to do a lot of work, and you need a mentoring, and that's where we come in, those who have been successful. This is how the application process looks like, and this is the website you need to go to and upload all your details. So I'm trying to squeeze this in so that Lawrence can come in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and then you have any questions in the next 3 minutes, you can ask. But if you need to reach us, please, you can always reach the alumni group, especially the African group, and we'll do everything we can to help you to be able to apply and stand a good chance. So Lawrence, can you come in now? Lawrence? I'm not sure if you've made my colleague a co-host, but if there are any questions, I can take it now whilst you try to give Lawrence Owusu a co-host so that he can unmute and talk. Any questions? Any questions? No? Is anyone here at all? Hello? Hello? Hello?